Okay, finishing up basically this concept of Bishul. There's one last aspect of it. One aspect we're not doing. It's called Hatmona. But, and that is washing on Shabbos, washing our bodies on Shabbos, or generally speaking, the use of hot water on Shabbos. Okay, so normally a Chum said that a person is not allowed to bathe their entire body even in hot water that was heated before Shabbos. To wash the entire body in hot water on Shabbos is forbidden even if the water was heated before Shabbos. Why? Because the people in the bathhouses would heat the water on Shabbos and they would tell you, no, we heated it before Shabbos. So they would lie because they would want the people to use the bathhouses on Shabbos. So therefore the Chum made a gzeira that you can't wash your entire body in hot water on Shabbos because even if it was heated before Shabbos, because of the people that were afraid you might heat it up on Shabbos. What?
So what's the actual halacha?
No, that is Gzeira Midrabanon. The halacha is heating up water.
So if
Bishul.
that wasn't the Gezerah for heating water?
That was a Gzeira of Bishul, yeah. The Gzeira of Bishul was because then you're going to heat up the water. Therefore, let's say, but it went even further. Anyway, so showering on Shabbos, okay, although it's not similar to the bathhouse, it's still forbidden to take a shower on Shabbos, even though you could say the water was heated in the boiler before Shabbos, and therefore what you're really using now, but in addition to the fact that we learned, nowadays when you open the faucet and turn on the faucet and cold water goes out, hot water goes out, so cold water gets into there also, so it's not allowed. Now what a person is allowed to do is wash parts of the body separately with warm water. If I'll tell you how to get that warm water, you can't nowadays turn on hot water because then the cold water goes into the boiler and it's going to get cooked. But even then, you're allowed to wash only if, let's say, you have already warm water from before, in a pan or whatever. You take water from an urn, and it's very hot, and you're mixing cold water. And we learned if it's a klisheni. So if you take from an urn and pour water into a bucket, then it's a klei sheni. So then klei sheni doesn't cook water. So then you can add water to the klei sheni because it's not going to cook. So now you'll have warm water. So now a person wants to be able to bathe themselves. So again, the entire body is still forbidden to do. They can do parts of the body as long as they don't wash the majority of the body. In other words, let's say your hands and face are dirty, okay? They got very dirty for whatever reason. You were cooking, on Shabbos you were waitering and it got full of grease and whatever. So you're allowed to wash your hands with warm water, providing, you don't turn on the hot water. You can wash your hands and face and feet, not in the shower, but out of the shower. You can wash your hands, face, and feet as long as it's not the majority of the body. But you have to be careful with a few other things. Number one, you can't use a washcloth because then you're squeezing water out of the washcloth. That's the malach of schita, which is originally the malach of dash, which is threshing, but schita is also an av malacha. So you can't squeeze. Then you can't use a bar of soap because then you're mamachik, you're scraping Many people hold, again, we hold that you are allowed to use liquid soap. Many people hold you're not allowed to use liquid soap on Shabbos. Even if you're using liquid soap, it has to be liquidy liquid soap, not creamy liquid soap, because then again you're smearing a cream. But technically, let's say somebody wants to soak their feet in warm water and wash the feet in warm water. So then they would be allowed to do it because you're only washing part of your body. You can't use a washcloth. You can even put in some, let's say, Epsom salt or things like that. Probably you would need a kli shlishi because maybe that becomes cooked in a kli sheni. But then you would be allowed to wash your hands and your face and your feet, but not the majority of the body. And in fact, it's also forbidden You're not allowed to do things on Shabbos that, like you're not allowed to walk into a sauna on Shabbos that's going to make you sweat. Why? It's also Gzeir Mid Rabbanon. Why? Because in the olden times, people like to cheat the system. So they would take showers in hot water, and they would say, no, it's just sweat. I was running in this, it's sweat on the body, but I didn't wash myself in the hot water. So again, it's part of the whole Gezerah, but you see the severity, it's so severe, you cooking water and all that on Shabbos. Chachamim made seemingly far-fetched, but in the olden times it wasn't far-fetched. People used to do that. People used to go into a sauna or wash themselves in hot water, and then they would tell everybody, no, I just was running in perspiration. So halachically, by the way, it's an interesting halacha on Shabbos. You're not allowed to do things that if you're doing it, the cause is to perspire. Let's say it's very hot outside, or if you went to New York, it was 100 degrees the last few days, yeah? You were sweating a lot. So the question, can I walk outside on Shabbos? But the answer is, I'm not walking to shul on Shabbos to sweat. I'm walking to shul on Shabbos to daven. So that's definitely allowed. If I want to go somewhere to eat. Again, I'm not doing it because I want to perspire, because the Chacham said you can't do things to make you perspire, because then people will think that you washed and you're just making a baba ma'aseh. So in fact, the whole issue is, the question is, let's say about people going to a mikvah on Shabbos. Because the halacha is, based on all these things plus more, that you're not allowed to wash the entire body even in cold water on Shabbos. In other words, according to halacha, bottom line, it's Gzeir Mid Rabbanon, but you're not allowed to take a shower on Shabbos only with cold water. You're not allowed to. Why? Because again, if you do it with cold water, you do it with warm water, and therefore they say, and there's other issues I'll tell you in a second. The chitzas kol gufay, washing the entire body, is not allowed on Shabbos. Okay? Now, mikvah is a different story. The reason why you're allowed to go to a mikvah on Shabbos, you can't swim on Shabbos. Swimming on Shabbos and Yom Tov is rabbinically forbidden. Either you'll build a raft, you'll do something to help you swim, or the simple reason is you can't wash your entire body on Shabbos. Besides the fact that you might use warm water then and that whole issue. But in addition to that, there's something called schita, okay? So if somebody has, let's say, a lot of hair on their head, or they have a beard, okay? Now, we'll learn one of the next halachos we're going to learn is going to be schita. So you're not allowed to squeeze things out of, biblically, you cannot squeeze out of olives and grapes. Mid Rabbanon, you can't squeeze out of any fruit that you use, or you can't use a sponge on Shabbos to wash dishes. Why? Because inevitably you're going to be squeezing the sponge. You're going to squeeze out the water that's absorbed within the sponge. Now, when a person has a lot of hair and it's wet, okay, and you buff your hair, like with the towel, so even though the din of schita, min haTorah, is when it's absorbed and you're taking it out from the place it's absorbed. Like even a sponge, okay? A sponge, the water is absorbed in the sponge, and then you're squeezing it out. Here, it doesn't absorb, right? So l'chayra, what's the problem with dry? If you have a lot of water, if you have a big beard, a lot of hair, you're not allowed to, when you wash it, you have to be very careful how you dry your hair. But l'chayra, there's no schita because the hair doesn't absorb the water. Hair doesn't absorb. But Mid Rabbanon, it says in Shulchan Aruch, the Chacham said, because like if you have a beard and you get wet, you can go like this and water will come out. So even though bottom line it's not schita, because it's between the hairs, it's not absorbed in the hair, but nevertheless it looks like it. So the Chacham said, now obviously if you have a little bit of hair on your arm over here, it's not a problem. But if you have a condensed amount of hair either on your head or in a beard, whatever it is, so then you have to be very careful. So one of the things that Chacham forbade, rechitzas kol gufi, because you might come to swim, which is forbidden, Or, I have to go. Or you might do other things. Okay.